근데 공부 통하네 류리 죽은 줄 알아요. 지단 거는 다 생리 아주 용장 거는 미류 된게 로당 통하네 하라면 드셔도 돼요. 매버든데 공 때문에 해야지. 그렇게 해서 신이 당세도도 있는
So here, of course, I'm pointing towards the sort of the nature of mental consciousness, the sixth mental consciousness. Here, I would like to point out that, of course, although the researches which are being undertaken now is quite few, but also at a very sort of elementary stage. However, there are experiments done on meditators. Although the experimental kind of sort of experimentations are very rudimentary or very elementary and at a very sort of early stage, however, these experiments are pointing towards a phenomenon which is perhaps difficult to account for within the current scientific paradigm. However, what they point out is that without any sort of physical change within the body, without any sort of movement, physical movement by the individual, simply by using the force of the mind through a single pointed state. These experiments have shown that one can affect the physiological states of the person, and these physiological changes that are taking place remain quite difficult to explain within the current sort of assumptions about the physiology of human being. Now, to me, what this point to is that although when we talk about human consciousness, when we talk about our consciousness, we are talking about a contingent phenomena. Of course, human consciousness is contingent upon the human body. All our experiences are contingent upon the human body. So this human mind and human body are in some sense inextricable. Yet at the same time, what this seems to point out is the possibility or the possibility that human mind, the mind, although it's contingent on the body, however, has a sort of a power of its own, which by simply through reflection or meditation or training of the mind can be enhanced.
Wilson ko Luigi Chigdadi nervous Chigtari Jor Chinche and will give a Shebo Korangan will say Chigdum the sometimes the little will say give a dean pa Castle Luke Zalia Paj could you tell you ever can you that Musunda Casore Corpore Chixani be tired shit that will get on the that's not the other common. Yanajik that you just sound that the negative in will game. So that the Shevachix nearly Shevatigini, Lulpa, Luke Duter, Zed, Paukutia, you have the self.
And also, we know that now within the modern medical discipline, there's a growing recognition of the power of will in the process of healing, and how a will can affect the healing process. So there is a sort of one could say, effect by will on the physiology of the person. So that is a fact that is recognized even in the modern medical discipline. And also we know that, as to how will is developed, it could be a case where the person does a lot of thinking, and thinking about all sorts of reasons, all sorts of grounds, and so on and so forth. One can develop a strong will. Similarly, someone could develop such a will through meditation or whatever. So there seems to be an acknowledgement that will can affect physical change. But as to the question whether sort of a pure thought, as it were, can, what seems to be accepted is that whenever thought occurs, the thoughts can give rise to chemical changes, movements within the brain, which then is affected or expressed or manifested in a physiological changes and so on. But as to the question whether pure thought can lead to such physical effects, or whether it is the case that whenever a thought occurs, it occurs as a result of chemical changes within the body or brain, that seems to be an open question. And I've asked on several occasions to scientists and medical scientists as to whether it is possible for just to have a pure thought first, and then that thought processes can give rise to chemical changes, which then is affected at the physiological level. Most of the time, the answer seems to be that there is an assumption that because consciousness is dependent on, consciousness is contingent upon a physical base, be it brain, that every occurrence of thought must necessarily be accompanied or be caused by chemical changes within the brain. But to me, that seemed to be more like a prejudice, rather than something that is experimentally proven.
So, 더동아도 잡아쳐야 돼. 다 주저도 검장에 다 검장으로 검점 보는 거잖아. 즉 가서 그게 카이라요. 따서 써야 돼. 계속 써야 되죠.
So here, I think the question is still open, and so what is needed here is further investigation and experiment, particularly on the part of the practitioners, by engaging in profound meditations and to see whether these changes could be effected within oneself.
So, 당연히 낭배 세단데 다디 셰베고 셰인도 전에 패지 나게 슝니 셰베 셰바 차라 이해하셔야 돼. 이 셰바도 룸디 남샤셔야 돼. 패지냐 판도 쳐보시면 돼.
So when talking about the nature of consciousness and the functions of mind, I think explanations that we find in the Vajrayana literature, where there is a discussion of the existence of different levels of consciousness or different levels of or subtleties of mind, and their correspondence to subtleties of energy levels or pranas, I think these discussions or these explanations can contribute a lot to the Buddha's understanding of the nature of mind and its functions.
또 그 셰바리가 당시 증행이나 아니 지금 남주 아주 셰바스야디 아니 가다지 치 지금 속도서 지금 다 대가지 통샤바 지금 다 텐데 딘데지 딘데기 남발 샤데 야나지 디두 노야 남발 샤데 딘데지 마도 코라 셰바 코레 지 코랑 가서 세점 직점기 넘버 콜로리아 샤철기요 말이 다 딩야를 차와지 타네 셰바 무슨 마도 디 셰바 디 넘버 마샤를 타네 셰바 무슨 그냥 가고 그러셔.
So when we talk about the nature of consciousness, generally speaking, when we try to investigate ourselves through introspection, we find that this in our own experience, most of our conscious mind seem to be either states of consciousness that has to do with objects that we have experienced in the past, or some kind of recollections, past experiences inform our present consciousness, or it has to do with some kind of feeling or sensations. So our sort of experience of consciousness tend to be predominantly sort of pervaded by either discursive thoughts or feelings or sensations.